Hi again, everybody, and welcome back to Women for All Seasons, the story of 6 extraordinary women who, on their way to their place in history, called Chicago their home at one point or another. This is the final part, the remarkable story of the remarkable woman known as Dr. Amy Lehman. All of these images are used within the fair use guidelines of the American copyright law and whatnot. My name is Clarence Goodman and whatnot. So let's go. Dr. Amy Lehman, the lady on the lake. Now, Amy Lehman was a remarkable kid from the very beginning when she was born and raised in Highland Park, Illinois back in the 1970s. One of these kids who was a teen titan, and we all knew people like this in high school who seemed to be overachievers, having more brains and talent and energy than they actually had hours in the day for. Well, naturally enough, somebody like this winds up going to a very posh prep school on the East Coast, Choate Rosemary Prep School, which is very, very good school. And there she kind of set the stage for her achievements, looking at English and Spanish and social science as possible majors in addition to other things. Ultimately, she landed back in good old Chicago, US of A, at the historic and remarkable itself University of Chicago, studying medicine there. Here's an idea and an example of how much this lady got accomplished as a young woman. And remember, she is a teenager and into her early and middle 20s with all of these credentials. AB honors from the University of Chicago in philosophy, literature, and social science. And then getting her doctors, her MD and her MBA while graduating Phi Beta Kappa. That is pretty impressive. And of course, what she wanted to do was change the world with her work, as you can see where this is going. One of the places that had always fascinated her and always intrigued her was the Lake Tanganyika Valley, or basin, if you will, on the continent of Africa, which included these countries: Congo, Burundi, West Tanzania, and Zambia. Now, this lake is one that we as Westerners and we as people from the Western Hemisphere don't generally know. We think about the Caspian Sea in Europe, and we think about, of course, the Great Lakes here in North America. But this extraordinary little lake here is not only a skinny piece of water, body of water that you might kind of misidentify as a very, very wide river upon first glance, but it has got the longest river coast in all, lake coast. See, I did it myself. Lake coast in all of the world. And as Dr. Lehman started to investigate this area and look into it, she came across something that conflicted her, that would conflict the average person. So within this quartet of countries in this area, you tended to find some of the most palatial and posh recreational and vacation spots for Westerners wanting to visit underdeveloped nations. This, of course, was tempered by the fact that there were people suffering from abject poverty like you would not believe. In addition to this, her travels there on her first trip, she recognized that not only was this area normally isolated and the people, as I alluded to a moment ago, suffering from poverty, but the people had suffered nonstop political and socioeconomic instability for decades. And she thought of this idea, perhaps, of a floating clinic to kind of drift around and hit the spots and bring aid and succor and medical attention and so forth to the people that needed it. So upon returning to Chicago to pursue her passion of general thoracic surgery and intensive care, she was confronted by another conflict. The vast majority of the people, as I understand it, were people who were already in their winter years. And so there was X amount of futility in her endeavor implied in her career. A thinking person, as she was and continues to be, would kind of see the conflict in this and the dichotomy of this. and she could not stop thinking about these conflicts. And so another resident of Highland Park, Illinois, was famous for saying, if you can't stop thinking about it, don't stop working on it. And so she did. She went back to the region one more time, and this time, upon her last day there in the region, a typhoon came in, which did not strand her there, but it certainly grounded everybody who was getting ready to leave the region. And so she used this extra time there and her resources and so forth to investigate further, since she couldn't, admittedly, stop thinking about it. And the more she got around and the more she met the people and the more she sailed around the area, the more the wheels were turning, if you will, and a light bulb popped. But in addition to this, Amy Lehman herself was already suffering and had been suffering her life with a chronic string of health problems. And so when she got back to Chicago, still thinking about this whole idea of a floating clinic, she underwent treatment for the pain and suffering that she was dealing with, and treatment of her pain led to an injury in her dominant arm. So suddenly she was faced with the possibility of not being able to continue practicing surgery, which was what she loved and what she had been gearing up for doing through much of her childhood. What could be as compelling as this? What else could she do? Her fascination with the idea of a floating clinic pretty much presented itself. And so as a result of this last trip home, she began to, as I'm sure you can imagine, because we can see where this is going, she changed her focus. And so she got to work developing the idea and eventually the reality of a floating clinic, which of course included all kinds of things, not only bringing the idea and so forth to the forefront of the public and awareness by the public, but also doing things like fundraising and so forth, going back to the area and meeting more of the people, getting around the region and seeing more exactly what the people of the region needed. And this is what she did. And she did so to an extreme degree. And as she has gone on to develop this floating clinic, as kind of a joke to herself, but also a reminder of what eventually served as the catalyst of this incredible idea of hers, she decided to have a map of the entire area, and as you can see, it's a relief map, tattooed on her person, joking with her friends that if she ever got lost in a typhoon in the region again, she'd have a map handy right there, although she'd probably need a mirror. If you are looking at this image, you see a website along the bottom of the page there where you can make a donation if you are so inclined. And so, my friends, in spite of incredible ethnic and national differences, in spite of a variety of different religious differences and the like, philosophical differences, in spite of financial differences and background and the like, and in spite of all of these women that we've talked about really reaching across the centuries with generational differences and the like, these women, Kate Warren, Ida B. Wells, Frances Glessner Lee, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Mother Dolores, and Dr. Amy Lehman are truly women for all seasons. And as you continue through your life, please think of them and the inspiration and the examples that they have set for us as far as pursuit of their goals and leaving this world a better place in which you found it. Thank you very much for hanging out with me and learning about these remarkable people. Do take care of yourself. May your God go with you. So long, everybody.